This is Saad. I'm back. Somehow I got disconnected, and apologies for that. Gregory, you're there as well?
Yes.
Okay, we will just start now. So, just to remind you, listeners, the topic we're discussing tonight, this is the spiritual discussion program. The topic we're discussing tonight is seeking answers to questions of life. When we have these questions, Gregory, I said we all have these questions. Where should we seek these answers? Where should we be seeking answers to our questions of life, which are, which are really, let's say, deep, and I don't have. I'm just asking. I'm not picking any specific question right now. I just want to say, get a general direction, and then maybe we can go into specific things on aspects of life. So, Gregory, if you can tell us, where should we be seeking answers to our questions of life?
Well, you said questions of life.
Yes.
That means the questions of life, or to reframe it, the challenges of life have to be, the solutions to that must be found in life, or in living itself, in all that is within and without of us. So that is what one should be examining, for that is what is referred to as living or life.
That sounds so simple and straightforward. You wonder, because yes, yes, you could say. So does that mean, Gregory, is it in you learn as you go? Or is there some teaching you're supposed to read up and get educated first? Or is everything, all of the above?
Well, what you just summarized are part of it. For if one uses the metaphor of a language, you learn as you go to understand the language which life throws at you. So you have to understand what it means to be happy or not so happy, that means sad, what pain is. All these things are part of the challenges which accost the individual, which the individual must make use of for their personal maturing.
Thank you for that. That's certainly some food for thought. So, it now, maybe I'm jumping a little bit, Gregory. Will we always find an answer to a question in our life? Or maybe there are some questions which can't be answered?
When you say we always find answers, it depends on the individual, how he or she goes about in their personal experiencing and personal examination. But with a firm volition in the pursuance for an answer or for a solution within the scheme of things, that particular individual in a step-by-step basis, because of that firm volition, that particular individual will be led across to paths such that through personal experiencing, it's able to deal with that particular challenge.
Thank you for that. So it looks like everybody's has to have their own journey, individual journey, to find their answers. So yes, that sounds again very appealing, if I can say, because each person is different, and no two people think the same, and no two people will have, let's say, definitely there may be some common questions, but there could also be some individual questions. And so giving a general answer may not be sufficient for the individual questions. So that's very good. I like your answer. So I want to ask, this is a spiritual discussion program. So let's say you have questions, spiritual questions, like how I came on this earth, how was I, where do I come from? And like I said earlier, Gregory, there are teachings, many teachings out there giving answers to this question. But this is can be an individual question. Each person can ask themselves. They don't have to be told, oh, this is how you came. You might still have a question anyway. Even there are people we can say atheists who do not believe in any such teachings. So for them, they might still have this question, where I come from. And you said you should have, have an earnest approach or fervent, earnest approach. But how would you actually start, Gregory? Do you just put the question out there, speak it to and share it saying it to the people around you, or do you keep it in silence? How should you sort of go about this to answer where I come from?
If one's questionings are not fervent, are not genuine, it means that personality is easily distracted with whatever abounds within him or around him. In that case, making progress becomes very difficult. But once there's a fervent wish deep within to find the roots or the origins of one's existence, then within the scheme of things, within nature, for one cannot dismiss that one was not born here on earth. Every individual human personality with a physical body was born here on earth. It does. So that is a start. Then, in all naturalness, since you admit that you were born, and yet you are still seeking, you're not satisfied with that, it therefore means you have a sensing that there is more to it that meets the physical eye or that meets the senses. In that particular scenario, you are seeking for more than what appears or what manifests physically. So in such a step-by-step manner, you are conscious of the physical body, which you use in experiencing in communication. And because you are not satisfied only with the physical body, because you came through your mom or through your parents, the question then that will strike the individual will be, what lies behind it? So that is where the motives come in. When one starts getting close to the motive, so one is now saying, there is more. Question will be, what is this motive? That is, why did I come here? And then it goes further, who is the I? So in such a step-by-step manner, many are led through different paths depending on their inner maturity, because no two human personalities follow the same paths all the time. So through such questioning, one is led through certain experiences. These experiences could be from dreams. These experiences could be from what they have read to have more clarity. So there are various paths through which many follow in order to attain to a clearer perception of what living is, of what life is about.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I like the approach, how you are saying how we can, go and answer this question. And then, but I'm still in my head, I'm wondering, maybe there's a limit to what you can answer, because maybe there's more to the story, of how we came here. Yes, you said mother and father, that's the immediate answer, but then somehow you think there's more to it than just that. And you said maybe there's more, and then you keep looking there, let's say asking, let's say within yourself, it's like, where did life actually come from? So, like you could say, yeah, where did life come from? So how did this planet, life on Earth started, you can say. And obviously, what I want to do right now, Gregory, I just want to use a few examples to explore further, in our discussion. So in this case, I would like to go to the Bible, Old Testament, and in fact, it's the beginning of the Bible, and it's Genesis chapter 1, and the first few verses 1 to 3, and I'm just going to read that out. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. I'm just going to stop at that point, Gregory. So this is the process, Gregory, that is saying how heaven and earth was created. I know slightly diverted from origin of us human beings, but we could say this is how life began, the story of how life began. So this, Gregory, is, let's say, it has been transmitted to human beings, these knowledge, you could call it, and it's written in, you could say, in a very simplistic way, but we know with science, we know that things are, let's say, more, I don't want to use the word complicated, but more involved. So when, Gregory, when we hear these words, which are sort of giving the beginning, you could say, of life, how are we meant to take these words? Are we just to take it, as people call it, gospel, just that this is how it is? Or we are supposed to, try to understand, absorb them and understand that, what these words mean?
First, may I request you to read it again?
Yes. Sure. So this is from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 to 3. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters.
Sorry, may I ask you to stop
maybe I'll break it down, Gregory. I will just say one line. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to get something very clear.
Sure.
Whatever language is used, there must be consistency. From what we have had, there is the creation, there is heavens and the earth. And then we also hear that the earth was formless and empty. That already gives self-contradiction. One cannot say it is formless and it is empty, Some even say it is out of nothing. That a name is given and that there is the spirit and there is the waters. One would not say the spirit is empty or the water is empty. Therefore, one should not take these writings on faith values. They must be interpreted differently. For when creation is mentioned, it is not a sudden event. Creation is a sequence of steps which have been outlined as you go further in that particular narrative. A sequence of steps. A sequence in which subsequently all that there is precipitates and takes on form. In that process, one can see the sequence. There is a beginning, and then there is a continuity in the formation or in the union and alliances of all that exists at the initial stage. In the scientific world, they have a name for that, which is why you have a strong debate between evolution and creation. What has just been read is very plainly a sequence of steps of the union of what exists to produce new ones, and that is what we refer to as evolution. So one can already see that the so-called biblical expressions and the so-called scientific verifications are one and the same thing. There is no difference between them. The only challenge has been the wrong interpretations of what many have considered. So, and sometimes the presentation is very poorly. To say there is nothing, or say nothing existed, and then you talk of waters. So when did the waters become nothing? And then you talk of the light. When did the light become nothing? And you talk of the Creator. When did the Creator become nothing? Was the Creator without a radiation? So these are the questions which each personality that seeks diligently to find answers should contemplate very carefully.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer and explanation. It shows how thorough we must be in examining what we are given, and not to accept it blindly, but understand it. And when there's inconsistency, as you pointed out, you have to wonder, if the information is correct or is properly transmitted. So thank you for pointing that out. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushi. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, M-E-S-S-A-G-E.com. and you're listening to Bless Radio. We're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space live stream. Bless Radio 1 space live stream. That's to listen to the live show. You can listen to the recording of the show the next day. Again, go to YouTube, type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, the number 1, then space, Grail message, and then space, the topic of the show, which tonight is seeking answers to the questions of life. Seeking answers to the questions of life. You can also look for recordings of our previous shows as well there. And also you can listen to another website which is broadcasting live as well. It's Zeno, ZENO.FM /Bless Radio 1, again the number 1. As I mentioned, the topic we're discussing is seeking answers to the questions of life. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 07 939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, we're talking about, you could say, the beginning of creation, and you pointed out how what I read from Genesis in the Bible, the account there, let's say there's some inconsistencies, and then which makes it very hard, to accept or to understand what is being said. And I think you pointed out, and science is also looking in this direction. But I think the consistency is the key word. Because if there's no consistency, you're never going to reach any answer. So I think that's a way, and when earlier on you mentioned about the individual seeking, that we seek within ourselves and looking at nature. So, and of course you're pointing to we need to be logical in our understanding, otherwise we are going to get lost. It's all very simple and clear, I must say that. Now, what I want to ask next on that, yes, just going to science, Gregory. Can science really give the full picture in this type of questions of life?
No. Science can never give the full picture because it is one-sided. Science finds out, looks at the externals, and in taking into consideration only the externals, using expressions which are present, it draws conclusions. Science has not taken into consideration the internals of happenings. Therefore, to have an all-inclusive picture, the so-called science, the way it goes about seeking solutions, is not in the position to provide answers, but to provide conclusive and comprehensive answers to happenings which science itself is only relying on one part. Therefore, for that very simple reason, it can't do that. It will always remain one-sided because of the tools that it relies on.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I want to continue again on the story of creation. You could say creation of the universe. And so here it continues in Genesis 2, but I'm not going to read directly from Genesis 2. I'm going to just read somebody's, let's say, summarized version of it. So it says, the Bible account goes on to describe the 7 days of creation. In the beginning, this is like a summarize, just to repeat that. In the beginning, God started creation. The first day, light was created. The second day, the sky was created. The third day, dry land, seas, plants, and trees were created. For the fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. The fifth day, creatures that live in the sea and the creatures that fly were created. The sixth day, animals that live on land, and finally humans made in the image of God were created. And by day 7, God finished his work of creation and rested, making the 7th day a special holy day. So Gregory, that's I know it's a lot of words, but it's supposed to be a summarized version of the account in the Bible. As I was reading, Gregory, I noticed, if we know what science, what science tells us, the process that they know or that they have discovered, there seems to be, it seems to follow similarly, but then one or two things seem to be out of sync. Just a bit like, Gregory, how we started in the beginning of Genesis. And maybe if I just point it out here, Gregory. So I'll just repeat quickly. In the beginning, God started creation. The first day, light was created. The second day, the sky was created. Third day, dry land, sea, plants, and trees were created. And the fourth day, the sun, moon, and the stars were created. And I'm just going to stop there. Straight away, Gregory, my mind thinks, hang on a second, how can the sun and the moon be created after the seas and the plant and the land? It doesn't make any sense there. Something isn't right. Maybe there's a like the transmission hasn't been accurate there, or something doesn't make sense there. And then as it continues further, it is okay. The logic seems to be more I'll use the word understandable or reasonable. So again, Gregory, this process here, how should we take it? Yes. Is it accurate?
First, what is irrefutable is that the way creation has been defined so far is a process. With that, because you have first, then the second, third, fourth, fifth, until it came to the 7th. It therefore also acknowledges that initially there was light, or there is light. Then it went on to talk about the sky. So there is the light. Then there is a precipitation of the light, which then forms a sky. And then there are further precipitations, which is referred to as land and seas, which one in quotes can call matter. And then you could see how further precipitations, the union of precipitations follows one after the other, things becoming denser and denser. And then on the 6th, after, when the animals have come in, then was man. In that case, he's talking about here on earth, the animals came before man came. So what is referred to as man must be that a personality which is using what it has found, and what it has found on earth is the animal body. So one can see, first, there is a sequence. That one cannot deny. And in this sequence, there are one step after the other, one dense precipitate after the other. This picture is very clear, and it couldn't have been made clearer, but indeed that's how it is. One can already see the union of the different substances coming into consideration. Therefore, it's very clear that what is being discussed here is evolution, the evolving of one substance from another in a gradual process. It did not take 1 second. However, those who presented this picture needed to have presented the picture in this particular form of days, albeit a period. For that is what many are able to grasp. Therefore, if one is to make sense of it, one must grasp this intuitively. For without that, it becomes very difficult to make sense of this process of evolution, which is called creation.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory. You give me a surprise when you call this process evolution, because many times we hear with the scientists and the people who are so-called believers in this, let's say, even this knowledge of or spiritual teachings, they, let's say, argue with each other about that process, because one says that they call them creationists, let's say, and the other one's evolutionist, or I don't know exactly the phrase that is used actually, but it's like they're two separate, I'm going to use the word theories in quotes, or explanations maybe is a better word, of how this process of creation is happening. So as I say, one people group, like the scientists, they consider it to be called evolution, while the, let's say, religious believers, they want to call it creation. So, but you seem to be saying that creation and evolution are one and the same thing.
Precisely. On the one hand, those who say evolution are looking at the external effects. Those who say creation are looking at the impressions. So on the one hand, you have expressions by the so-called materialists or scientists. On the other hand, We have impressions, which impressions have been taken by doctrines or teachings without any further examinations, and therefore you have inconsistencies, like when they said, Lord created the heavens and the earth, and it was formless, and it was empty, and then the waters. So on both areas, no one had examined critically even the language spoken, and that has always been the root of all the problems.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory, because it clarifies how we can make sense, of these writings and scientific approach. And the good news from what you're saying is that they actually do align if you look at it properly, rather than they argue with each other and then disagree. So that which is obviously very uplifting. Now, the other thing, Gregory, although I would say it's a small issue, the account from the Bible, it talks about day, one day, first day, second day, third day. And we know from science, these processes take eons, or millions and billions of years. So again, maybe there's a question of language here, rather than actually a dispute.
Actually, when one examines these things very carefully, the confusion comes through the perceptions, the conceptions which many have formed with relation to space. Basically, whenever space is spoken of, one considers structures, one considers forms. So wherever forms or structural forms can be put in place, then there you have space in all simplicity. If there are no structural forms, if there are no structures could be constructed, or no structures could be formed, then there is no space. And then one would then ask, what is this time? As had been discussed many times, one can already admit that creation itself, life itself, there is always motion. And in this motion, there is the beats, the rhythm, the vibration. And that is what time is all about. So there are different forms which one cannot deny. One can talk about the day and night, which is just one complete vibration. One can talk about the movement of the sun, of the earth around the sun, as one vibration. One can talk of, the toing and the froing when one is with relation to the moon as another vibrations. But all these are vibrations of different sizes. So the simplest conclusion one can draw is that which returns to its origin, that cycle that goes back to its origin, that's what we refer to as time. But the forms keep changing. However, that cycle is eternal. With that clarity in one's mind, then it's understandable when a metaphor of a day is used in biblical writings, for how else can they express it? Therefore, when you find something like the first day, that means the first period, and then is the second period. So one can already, for one who strives to grasp these narratives intuitively, one can already see creation as a sequence until the last thing has been done. And then it's as if a repetition. That is how it is. And therefore, depending on the fastness of the vibration, 1,000 years can be as one day, depending on how man experiences. So these things by themselves are self-consistent. The problem has always been the inability of some to picture it aright and wishing to force all these conceptions on the earth when it is very clearly stated that there was the light, the sky, all right, dry land, and one can see a sequence. As with any language which is spoken, the language you and I speak, we speak it in sequence, in time. Therefore, whoever needs to understand the occurrences in life must also strive along that line to grasp sequentially at the initial stages how these things came into existence.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I want to follow on from the question just prior to this question I asked. I talked about, just repeat that, on the sixth day, animals that live on the land and finally humans made in the image of God were created. And we've talked about already about some, let's say, people who follow the scriptures saying there's a creation, and the other one, scientists saying there's an evolution. So the way I'm pointing to, Gregory, is the people who are following, in quotes, the creationist view, thinking that, oh, yes, God made animals, and then separately he now made humans. The humans have been made in the image of God. So they're two separate sort of creations. Not animal has evolved into human being, which is what the scientists would like to point out. So, so I just want to confirm, Gregory, and just to, before I go there, I just want to say, so in the Bible it says, where God made, so man is made from the dust of the earth and breathed life into him, which it seems to contrast from what the scientists are saying, that the man has evolved from the animals. So can you go into that explanation there?
In the first instance, one must admit that everyone is entitled to their opinions. However, when facts have to come in, when the facts have to be examined, one should be bold enough to admit that these are the facts. And the first fact, which one had always stressed, is that motion is a law in creation. Within this motion, comes what one may refer to an intuitive expression. That expression which one must call the law of reciprocal action, which the scientists must call vibrations, because these have arisen out of motion. So the law of reciprocal action is a fact, cannot be denied by anyone because it applies everywhere. So every happening on earth, every happening in nature, every happening in the world of matter, every happening in creation must be viewed from the basis of reciprocity, the laws of reciprocal action. Secondly, one must also admit the fact that in reciprocal activity, just as you and I are discussing, and you are able to hear me and me able to hear you, and signals being transmitted from one point to the other, that this particular phenomena is what the so-called scientists refer to as resonance. That is a fact. In the same vein, taking an equal expression on an intuitive basis, one must establish on one's intuition that of the so-called attraction of homogeneity. With that, there are two facts which one must refer to. One can draw out so many other facts continuously. That being the case, when we now examine what the scientists allude to and what the creationists also alluded to, one can see that in the first instance, light came first before things started precipitating gradually. As they start precipitating from one degree to the other in their cooling down, one started having forms, more solid form, impenetrable solid forms. A process of densification. With that, one now arrives here on Earth. So one can already see how that which is light precipitates to denser and denser and denser. In the scientific arena, it is not arguable, for matter is referred to as condensed energy. No one has ever seen energy, none. However, the effects of energy are there for all to observe, and energy is spirit. So, on the one hand, the so-called sciences acknowledge energy, which energy, when it condenses, congeals, before too long, in the cooling down process, matter itself becomes observable, and you start having particles. These are all fully well established and no argument about it. When it then comes to man himself, notice it was not said that man came first. The animals were first created, or in the process of cooling down and in the process of union and alliances, the volition, or that which activates the animal, which one simply may refer to as the mystic, came first and prepared the body. Thereafter, that which is higher than the animal took over the body for further refinement. That is why it was said, animals, then man. So, that which makes use of the body is not itself of the body. That which makes use of the body is spirit. Which spirit can only be recognized by its homogeneity. Spirit will recognize spirit. Matter will recognize matter. So, in such homogeneity of or resonance, have the scenario that which is of spirit makes use of that which is very dense. So at the beginning, in the gradual process of evolution, from the plants gradually to the first primeval animals, there was this continuous development before the animal, the core of the animals took over. In this gradual process, refined it to a particular level, to the best of their ability. Then that which is of spirit, which is made after the image of the Creator. That expression is used very carefully. Made after the image. The question one must ask, what do you understand by image? Image normally is when one takes the mirror, you see your image. But that is more, it's a stark difference. You, the personality, you are alive. That which you refer to as the image, strictly speaking, is only a mirror reflection. Taking it from there, one can now imagine that which is referred to as image needed to be given a boost, a breath of life, such that it can continue or it can be animated. There are two processes here, or two steps. The preparation of the body and then the animation of the body, that breath of life. That process has been described very carefully. To understand all the facets of how this is, the walk in the light of truth, which talks about light itself and talks about truth itself. The author has made it very clear how all this came into existence. The walk in the light of truth explains all this. There, all that the human personality seeks in humility, there it will find it. All that we try to do is to give a tester, pointing to that direction, that each discerning human personality may be humble enough to examine for themselves where all light and all truth is granted.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer and explanation. Building the picture, building the pictures for us to really see things more really clearly. That the words that we read in the scriptures, and then scientists' discovery, what scientists come up with, that it needs to be seen, you could say, in a more comprehensive light, and it is the Grail message that helps us to see that. So the explanations given in the Grail message help us to get the real understanding of what is written in these scriptures and what the scientists have been discovering. So yes, listeners, I really urge you to pick up the Grail message and examine it. So in view of that, if you are interested in knowing about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin. And we have a topic we're discussing. The topic for tonight is seeking answers to questions of life. Seeking answers to questions of life. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on blessradio1, the number 1.com. blessradio1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is seeking answers to questions of life. And of course, you can also listen to our previous shows. And alternatively, you can also listen to from another website, which is Zeno, ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1, again the number 1. Gregory, I want to now move on to a slightly different angle now, about the questions in life. People suffer diseases or have accidents or deaths that happen without an obvious cause. Somebody is outwardly healthy, but then they get cancer, or it might even be an inherited disease, and you're wondering, okay, let's say my parents had it, but really why I'm having it? What have I done to get that? So, is it connected to fate, connected to our forefathers? And so such a question might arise, Gregory. And you will wonder how it can happen to me. How can one answer this question? Should one go to a psychic or or some medium, or some people even do because they think it's to do with their previous life. Maybe they need to go get hypnotized to see what was the cause of what is happening to them. And others, they follow their religion and they say, okay, this is God's will, I accept it. I don't know why, the reason, but this is something God wants me to experience, so I accept it. So, Gregory, any of these approaches that are trying to get answers to this question, why something happened to me, are they helpful? Are they the right way in any way?
When the right way is discussed, then one must ensure that there is clarity on what is meant by the right way. There is no one, or there is no personality on earth who is not challenged. In fact, these challenges are conditioned by the decisions which one has taken now or in the past. That is one possible scenario. The other scenario is that, again, there are challenges. With challenges one needs to find a solution to, and then to overcome these challenges in order to mature. Or otherwise, even in the so-called mere earthly things, the so-called football that people kick about, have you ever seen anyone who would like to say there's no other team that needs to challenge their skills, and therefore the goal should be open and they keep shooting balls into the goal? Therefore, one must draw a conclusion. These challenges are necessary for the human personality to mature, either from, or these challenges might have come through their past activities in their present or past earth lives, or they themselves have come in to face these challenges squarely in order to grow strong. Whatever the scenario, those two scenarios, as long as the human personality has the right attitude to it, then is able to strengthen itself by mastering all that has been granted to it, all the virtues granted to it, is able to make use of them and become strong. If you do not use that which is granted to you, how can you be strong with it? Therefore, it is not right to try to run away and say, oh, I need to go to this particular person or that person, such that the challenges in front of me should be removed. For strictly speaking, a mere re-evaluation, a mere change of views about what these challenges are, that change is enough for many to find a solution, and to a large extent will be grateful that that particular challenge was in front. Else, they would not have come to realize many other things which were possible. As you rightly know, when you go to parents, which in quotes have so much resources at their disposal, and their offsprings do nothing but just to make use of this, these children turn out to be lazier than their parents, which parents needed to have exerted themselves so very hard to attain to a particular level. In the self-exertion, in calling into being, in making use of their spiritual talents, their material skills, and knowing how to speak and observe, that makes them sharper. They become more vigilant as compared to those who do nothing but sit down and spend all the time only knowing how to criticize those who do the work. And as many already know, the best footballers are not the ones in the pitch striving to score the goal. They are the ones that have cigars in their mouth, with beer in their hands, at the sidelines, and finding all the loose, finding all the holes, how the ball should have been kicked. These same people with their pot bellies are so active in their own thoughts on how things should be. But where does it lead many of such? Virtually nowhere. Therefore, be it joy or be it sorrow, these challenges help to awaken the human personality to vigilance. Vigilance of the intuition, vigilance of the intellect, vigilance of the physical body.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've got so many questions actually. Say life is about learning and growing, and then we make mistakes as we grow. So I'm wondering, Gregory, are we like made imperfect or start imperfect, let's say, and strive to become perfect? Is that the process, what is meant to happen? And yeah, is there some sort of such a goal like that for us?
One must stress that, as with any language, you learn the language to understand what the rules are in one's expression. It's better to say at the beginning, when you do not yet understand the language, you are unconscious. You are unconscious of the processes that could accrue through the use of this language. It's as if you are asleep. However, as you strive to understand this language, which language is creation itself, you become more aware of the possibilities and of the joys that it offers. In that particular journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, you now see what is around you, how you can make use of them. But that doesn't suffice. You now move from the stage of consciousness to the stage of self-consciousness. Means those innate abilities which you yourself carry, which are intrinsic features, which are intrinsic properties about you, now come to blossom. Then you will become self-conscious. Then you understand the language which creation speaks to you, and in reciprocal activity, in resonance, one is able to respond. That is the state in which man reaches when he or she now goes back home and has arrived in that realm of spirits, of self-consciousness, which one calls paradise.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. I've got so many sort of range of questions, so I will continue. You know, when, again, you have, let's say, some question, and you don't know how to proceed, you have a doubt within you, how to resolve an issue, let's say, how to find the source of a problem. And then I'm wondering, Gregory, to resolve such a situation, is it, when you have doubt or something, is it the way to go forward? Is it to pray? How to resolve this when you have a doubt?
Many times, for many, the scenario where one calls one's intuition into it is very rare. Rare in the sense, whatever you do not use again and again. Take, for instance, imagine you were so very strong as a child, running everywhere, making trouble, doing all sort of things. And then along the line, maybe you were unwell and you slowed down. To come back to that initial stage, you require a lot of strength. It's as if you have to relearn everything. So, with the lack of the use of one's intuition, then it becomes difficult for one to have learned a particular lesson, or for one to have actualized a particular lesson. And until you actualize a particular lesson, it becomes alive within one's spirit. You will not know how to continually call on the varied experiences that lie within you. At that stage, there is, oh, it could be this, or it could be that. So that is where doubts come in. For when at that stage of doubt, it means that something has happened, or some challenge is imminent, or you can already face it. However, you are trying to find a solution to this particular challenge or unique challenge based on what you have done in the past. That is where doubts come in. Should I use the solutions of the past, or do I need to examine anew? because many are prone towards laziness, they want to use that old-time religion. After all, it was good enough for my parents, therefore it should be good enough for me. Whereas should one be in a position to strengthen oneself, to muster yourself, put forward all the strength you have to look at this new challenge, before long, you become so used to it that you wish new challenges to come again and again, and you are sure of victory. You are sure of victory, for your intuition is always in motion. For you yourself harbor good volition, good firm volition. You yourself are patient. Then only happiness will now well up within you, because whatever challenge placed before you, you already know it is there to teach you something, which lesson will become valuable now, here, or hereafter.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Well, as I said, many questions. So before I do that, I just want to remind listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushing. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to Bless Radio. As I said, and the topic we are discussing tonight is seeking answers to questions of life. Seeking answers to questions of life. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. We're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we're broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of the show by going again on YouTube, which you can listen the next day. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is seeking answers to questions of life. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows there. Also, we have another alternate website you can go to, which is Zeno, ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1, the number 1. Gregory, do we need evidence or proof to believe or accept something is true? For example, we're told about life after death. How can one prove that to oneself? Do you need evidence, like I say, Gregory, for this type of question?
As with everything, one needs evidence. But what is evidence? evidence has to be that which can be constructed. Construction refers to intuition. So for many who ask for evidence, where is their intuition? It would be wrong to ask one to furnish evidence for that which has not yet happened. At the same time, that which has happened, they haven't found any evidence, any conclusive or intuitive evidence which is consistent to provide. That which has already happened is the birth. What was it before birth? After all, we know we were born. So why seek for solutions after death when you haven't found solutions before birth? In striving to grasp the concepts of life, as has been discussed many times over, it becomes clear that in order to manifest here on earth, to be able to participate in experiences physically, one needs a similar tool, and that tool is the physical body of flesh and blood. Of course, we all know that that which manifests here in a body is temporal. That is the nature of it. For, like has been stressed, there is that law of reciprocity, where that's where you have a beginning, and the end of it, which ends in that cycle of vibration, the species return. So it was only a build-up, an accumulation of particles and atoms and molecules to have a form which the user, that is the soul, that is what makes use of the physical body. So the soul precedes the physical body. It was the decisions the soul and the previous physical body, the decisions it had made that brought it to where it is now. And it is the decisions that the soul makes that will take it to where it needs to be when the physical body is dropped. Therefore, man should not start looking forward, but should first make the effort to understand, why am I here? What brought me here? Or as soon as he strives and is earnest alone in asking that question, within this scheme of things, he or she or such thoughts will pave the path in which if we go through experiences that will grant it the evidence, the consistent evidence that it needs, in such a way it need not ask such questions because it already knows the answer. Then it can look forward confidently, now knowing how to sow its seeds or how to weave the threads such that only that which is beautiful of upbuilding will be woven, and in reciprocity the paths will become brighter and brighter. Should there be things in the past which he could not understand, but now having had the strong, firm volition, the solution will be placed before it like it's being helped by the mother in taking the first steps, as with everything. Then it can say it is free at last. Such strong sensation, which many a song tries to put forward, is reality. Then it can say free at last, free at last. Then thank the Lord Almighty. Lord Almighty, through whose love and law made it possible for this particular human personality, having had a strong, firm, and good volition, to find its way out of the present chaos it has contributed to. Then it need not fear anymore. Then it can go forward courageously.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. I've got, as I say, so many questions, so I will just move on to another one. You know, there are basically many religions out there, and each one claiming that they're the only path to salvation or heaven, and you have to believe, you know, their beliefs, and if you follow something else, then you can't, you know, you're, let's say, in quotes, road, another road to hell. So we have this with many such teachings, Gregory, and when people say such things, such believers, or make such claims, you know, you're thinking this can't be right. That you know, they all claim it's from the Almighty Creator, what their teaching is, but we know that there are differences and so on between them. And you also know that the teaching was sent to one people in this land at a certain time, and then other teachings sent to another land at a different time. And you're just wondering, you know, you can't make sense of it, Gregory. What is really the real truth? Are there each teaching just for those people that is the way to heaven for them, and then there's another teaching given to those other people, and that is what they need to practice to get to heaven for them? It's very unsatisfying when you know, if that teaching only remained in that land and it never got out of that land, and that's what they have to follow, fine, and the other people get that teaching, another one for their another land. And as long as the two people don't mix, then you think, but the world we have today, Gregory, everything is like one big village, global village, and then you get to know all the different things. So, and that when you hear about it, your mind is getting confused. They can't all be right, making such claims like this. So my question, Gregory, is, Are they genuine, these teachings? Are they saying the right thing there, that this is the only way?
One may speak of facts. One may speak of the truth. Which truth has always been that there is, in all happenings, whatever it is, whether it be a teaching or a non-teaching, there is reciprocal action and there is resonance. When it is said that by their activity we shall know them, it only means that the kernel of these behaviors, the kernels of these doctrines, when examined, if it is not consistent with itself or consistent with the laws through which all came into existence, then of itself it collapses. The challenge has always been, like with every other thing, that one must accept whatever doctrine, whatever teaching has been passed on to them. And that is what is called belief. If one were to follow that without examination, without ardent, real, rigorous examination, then it means there will be structures put in place which are against the laws through which many have come into existence. And such structures are flimsy. No one will want to ride in a structure which is flimsy, which will collapse with the smallest puff of wind. You want to have structures which will withstand the storms. It is not difficult to examine these doctrines or teachings. However, for one who is spiritually indolent, that means that particular personality does not absorb whatever has been thrown at it and examine them intuitively. Such a personality takes for granted that these teachings or these doctrines are from the Almighty, when they can already find some intrinsic contradiction, intrinsic wickedness, then there is very little one can do for such a personality. So there is only one way out. Whatever challenge is thrown at you, examine. Whether it be football, whether it be your studies in school, whether it be your religious bias, examine. If one cannot find consistencies and one perceives wickedness, then because the human personality is endowed with free will, needs to make a decision. For the decision is now to be, that means to examine, or not to be, that is not to examine. So, how to be now depends how you examine it. In examining the how, there is always a reference, which reference for all that exists are the laws through which many have come into existence. And that was why at the beginning of this discussion, we read out the ancient biblical writings. And the first thing we had to do was to look at it very critically and say, there are some things which are not consistent here. And then looked at it from a spiritual or intuitive point of view. That is only the beginning. Only when one does such things again and again and again. Initially, it takes some effort, but with continuous practice, it becomes like second nature, as with a language which you understand. Then you need not fear anymore. And many a thing which would have frightened you, because you have already found the solution, becomes nothing. So the key here is that the human personality must not just take things that have been thrown at it, but must examine everything that appertains to the life of man.
Thank you so much for this answer, Gregory. I've got now another question, a bit different from what we have been doing so far, talking about so far. It's, we are told, again, it's from the scriptures, you can say, we are told to submit or obey the will of God. Which is, does this mean that we have to put our will aside, and bow to what life puts in our way, i.e. accept what fate brings to us, and so we decide, so what that basically, so yes, if we obey this will of God, Gregory, it seems like we are sacrificing our free will and our happiness. We're sacrificing also our happiness, for the sake of making the Creator happy. Is that right?
The question is, who gave the personality the free will? The Creator made it possible that the human personality should have a free will. Therefore, it would be wrong to now say the will of the Creator that granted the free will to the human personality now wishes the human personality not to use the free will. Again, these are the things that were mentioned when he said each must examine. To obey does not mean to be subservient. To obey means to observe. A very simple example, for you to be able to exist here on earth, you need to breathe in and breathe out. The moment you stop breathing, before long you are gone. Do you wish to stop breathing, which has been granted as an intrinsic part of you, for you to exist here? The other one is, for you to exist here on earth, you require the nutrients. You require food and drink. Do you now say, because of your free will, this body which has been granted to you for your experiencing, you now have a free will? You now want to violate it and do not wish to use the free will to make nutrients available for your body? These are the questions which man must ask themselves. Therefore, it is the Creator that granted the free will. And whatever the Creator has granted to you, make use of it judiciously in accordance. At the same time, understand that each personality has been granted that same free will. So proceed in such a manner that in your personal experiencing, you yourself do not titrate to others or make it impossible for others to fulfill that which they sense they should, just like you yourself are doing. It is that in reciprocity forms the threads, forms the knot which holds the individual down. For in proceeding and injuring others, like you are trying to become self-conscious, it means you obstruct their forward movement. In reciprocal action, you then obstruct yourself, for you must make atonement, just like any other person who obstructs you from full experience must make atonement. That is how it is. And that is fairness. That is justice. Many would like to commit all sorts of atrocities without atoning for it. As long as it concerns others, we can trample upon them. The question is, if he himself or herself were trampled upon, what would they expect? Will they call that justice? So it is very clear. In accordance with reciprocity, once a personality has tied a knot through their activities, it was they who tied the knot. In all fairness, it is they who should untie the knot, not some other person. These knots can be untied through either reflections or some form of other activities, which make it now possible for whoever has been adversely affected to find relief. Just as if you yourself had been wrongly punished, whatever one cares to call it. It would be fair for whoever had tied a knot on you finds a way of assisting you or those around you or those connected with you to rise higher, such that in working together, one will support the other.
Thank you for such a good answer, Gregory. We've come to the end of the show now, listeners, and I'd like to read from the Grail message in the foreword. It's titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this in the form of ready-made opinions of others only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abdrushin. Dear listeners, thank you for joining us for our discussion tonight, seeking answers to questions of life. Hope you enjoyed the show and found it enlightening and uplifting. Greg, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing them a beautiful week.
Thank you. And same from me, listeners. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care.